All right, everybody. So I want to do a more comprehensive comparison between Excel and Access, but really the focus is more on how you can utilize both. A lot of people, as mentioned earlier, do not utilize Access as much as they should. They overuse Excel, and there are reasons we're going to go over why that is the case, and they really do underutilize Access. So without a doubt, the first reason that a lot of people use Excel instead of Access is that with Excel, the learning curve is very short. It's easy to get up and running with Excel and be productive right away. And not only is it easy to learn, it's easy to store the data, to perform numerical calculations, to format cells, adjust layouts, generate output and reports so you can share it with others. And of course, it has some of the other more advanced features as well. Power pivot tables, pivot charts, and a lot of different templates which really make it easy to accomplish a lot of different tasks. And third of all, it can actually also integrate with analytic services. For example, if you're doing business intelligence from the SQL server. Tweaking your results is also very easy. You can get the exact layout, fonts, colors that you want with relative ease. But the big disadvantage with Excel is as you grow, as your data grows, it really becomes difficult to maintain that data accurately over time and then to scale the volume of data that you are using. So when you add new rows and columns, let's say, your summary ranges and formulas may need to be modified or new ones created, as data and formulas aren't consistently updated, and then these mistakes are ultimately going to lead to bad results and decisions. Now, even though those disadvantages don't sound very good to somebody that's been using Excel for a while, I have found that when people do get used to using spreadsheets, it is often difficult to appreciate what benefit databases have over spreadsheets. So there are several advantages to using Access. One of them is the data structure and normalization through having multiple tables. So that is something, of course, that we cover in the course. Scalability is way easier, and you'll understand the idea of adding more records being free. And this is just because databases are designed to allow for more records or more rows. That is where their power is. You can actually add up to about 1 million records. Then you have your data and referential integrity. So that's another important concept that really keeps the validity of your data over time. It's going to make sure that when changes are made, changes are recorded across the whole data that you have, across the whole structure of your data. You're not going to, for example, delete it in one place and still have it in another place. So these kinds of things are really what give a huge advantage to Access when it comes to managing your data and storing your data in a database as opposed to Excel. You have the benefit of easily creating queries and reports, and you can also do great automation through the use of macros and VBA modules. Macros are sort of the middle kind of tool that you have in between using the graphical interface of Access and VBA. Macros are sort of in between in terms of difficulty, in terms of usefulness, and they're really easy to set up, and they make things a lot easier. I won't go into the specifics in terms of these advantages, but in the course you're going to see how all these benefits line up when we talk about normalization, when we talk about referential integrity, and so forth. Now, one of the clear disadvantages is that it is more of a complicated product to use than, Excel or Word and the other types of products that you see in Microsoft Access. So some people notice that it is more difficult. They don't think they have the experience and training, so then they use Excel even though they really should be using Access. But that's what the course is for. It's to get you comfortable with those elements and principles that databases follow. And also really, complexity largely depends on how big of a project it is. So if it's a fairly small project, you're not going to have much more difficulty understanding how Access works. Now, if it's a very, very large project, then of course that might be more difficult. But I find if you know the base principles, you can easily work your way up from first trying to design a more simple database and then working your way up to a more complex database. So the point being, if you just intend on being the end user, so you just intend on creating, let's say, queries and reports and inputting data into forms, you of course don't have to worry about things like normalization, referential integrity, or building the database up. That of course is the job of the developer. You just want to be very comfortable with all the different objects in Access and just learning how they interact. But it's always good to know extra knowledge, whether you're the one developing or not. It's going to help you out probably when you have some questions about something. You're not going to be confused about what it is. So related to the fact that Access is really the more complicated, the most complicated program in the Microsoft Access family, if you will, obviously it's going to take you more time to develop a somewhat sophisticated database than it would be to just use Excel. And finally, when it comes to visualizing your data, I would certainly use Excel. Continue using Excel if you have been using Excel for those purposes, as data visualization options are more advanced in Excel. You have things such as power pivots, of course. The charting features are also more modern in Excel compared to Access. So the output that you can generate in Excel usually looks better. And just a final note for this lecture, if you do have doubts about using Excel and Access, if you go on the Microsoft website, it actually states that in general, Access is better for managing data, helping you keep it organized, easy to search, and available to multiple simultaneous users, and that Excel is generally better for analyzing data. And then they go on to say, if you use Access to store your data and Excel to analyze it, you can gain the benefits of both programs. So when Microsoft did in fact come out with all these different products, including Word and Excel and Access, they intended for them to be used together.